Welcome to the Ohio Computer-Based Assessment tutorial. This tutorial will focus on the Physical Science End of Course exam for the Performance-Based Assessment. We will begin at the Ohio Computer-Based Assessment portal, which is oh.portal.airast.org/OCBA. And then once there, we're going to click Practice Test. And then the login page, we will log in as a guest. We will select grade 9, 10, or 11. All of the end of course exams are in all three of those grade levels. And once you get to there, you will see the different end of course exams that Ohio has created for their computer-based assessment program. We are going to focus on the science PBA. We will do another tutorial on the end of year physical science end of course exam. The reason we're splitting these, we actually did not split the American history or American government because they had similarities between the questions that were on both of those end of course exams. However, for the science assessments, there are some major differences between some of the tasks that students are asked to do between the PBA and the end of year. So we're going to spend this tutorial looking at the performance-based assessment. We will keep the settings the same, confirm them, and start the test. Here's where they will explain the different types of tools and the different types of rules and guidelines for the test. So we start, and right off the bat we see some questions that look much different than a typical paper pencil assessment. This is a drag and drop where the students have to read the information, look at the graph, and it tells them they have to do a couple different things. They have to place one object in each of the boxes. So we have an up arrow, a down arrow, and a no change. They don't have to use all the objects, and they can use them more than once. So here they're going to either put it's a no change, or it's a decrease, or it's an increase with no change. So if they don't like one of those, they can click delete, and it will delete the object that they put in there. Then they can re-put the objects in the box. So that's a drag and drop. So students have to understand how to navigate that type of question. Before I go on, let me go up and look at the navigation bar, because there's some new things here in the science test that we did not have on the other end of course exams. This navigation piece is the same, where it's the navigation of forward or backward. They can save, pause, and end the test. But over here we have some new tools. We have a periodic table, so the students actually have access to the periodic table and all the information on the periodic table. They also have a formula reference sheet for the high school physical science exam, so that they can kind of use this information throughout the test. There is a scientific calculator that they can use online, so they don't need to have a calculator at their workstation. There is the same notepad that they can write notes on, save, and then open again. The line reader, which allows them to just read each line, might help students that have tracking issues. And then we have the zoom in and the zoom out that helps students maybe with a visual impairment. So those are the new tools that you have available for the science end of course exams. Here's another example of the new format for the technology enhanced types of assessments. You'll notice here we have a lot of information on the side that explains the transfer and transformation of energy, and they have to understand that they have to be able to scroll, and then that will allow them to have access to those. They can expand that box if they want to see it in a different way. The question for that data is over on the right hand side, and this is again, a drag and drop. So they're dragging numbers into the boxes that are provided. So students will probably look at the data, have to make some calculations, and then put their final answer in. So another example of a technology enhanced item. Another question on the same information, but this is a typical extended response where they will just type their answer using the keyboard. They do have some tools here that they can use, like a word processor, where they can underline, bold, they can bullet. So if a student is familiar with any word processing program such as Microsoft Word, they should not have any issues using that text editor in the end of course exam. Here's a really good example of a question that has a lot of components to it that students have to really learn how to navigate. They're asked to use again the information from the left side, but they're going to either add an arrow or add a point to demonstrate the frictional force of what they're seeing in the data. So they can add an arrow, they can add a point, they can add another arrow. So they really have to be able to demonstrate their knowledge of the friction force exerted using these types of arrows and using the length of the arrow to represent the strength of the force. So again, students have to have a very good depth of understanding to engage and answer many of these types of questions that they're asked to do, because they have to do multiple tasks to demonstrate their understanding. The next question involves a simulation, and this simulation is over on the left side, and the simulation allows students to actually run a lab procedure and then see the results. So they have a drop down here that they can use parachute W, X, Y, or Z. They can do it from different heights, and then they can make it out of different materials. So they're making, and then they can just run the simulation. So it's an egg drop, basically. It shows the height, the material, the speed, and the stopping, and then they also have a graph there. All right. Now they could change the height and run it again and see the different data, if there is different data, and figure out if there was any significant difference. They can change the material, and then once they've ran all of the trials they want to run with all the different variables, they can take that data then and use it to answer the questions over here. So this has a lot of things going on that students really have to learn how to navigate and engage in, because they have to read a lot of information over here, understand how to run the simulation, and then look at the data and analyze it to get the information they need to address the question or the task that they're asked to do over here. And this again is a drag and drop where they have to put a number in the boxes. Nope, didn't get it quite. And again, I'm not answering this correctly, I'm just dragging. And then and I'm not reading the directions for the sake of time, but you notice there is the ability to drag these different fields to where they are supposed to demonstrate their understanding. They can delete these, by clicking the delete button and then redoing the drag and drop. So this is a very complex problem or question that students have to do a lot of different tasks to demonstrate their knowledge. Here, using the same data from the simulation, they're doing another type of question, and they're putting in the data over here in terms of the parachute. They're putting in what parachute it was, what the height, and what the material. So they're using the data from the trials that they did over here and putting it in a data table using a drag and drop. This is a hotspot or a select, so they have to put what they believe was the best combination to protect the egg, but they can only select one, so that, again, using the information they gained from the simulation, they're answering the question over here. So that gives you an idea of a little bit of the complexity of the questions of the performance-based assessment for physical science. It's important that students really understand the concepts that they're dealing with so that they can engage fully in the tasks that they're being asked to engage in. Once they are finished, they end the test, and it will show what questions they did not answer, and then they can go back and review that question again and answer it. But once they end the test, they submit it, and once they hit that yes button, they cannot go back and change it. So make sure teachers who are proctoring the assessments make sure that all the students have their assessment completed totally before they log out. This has been the tutorial for the physical science end of course exam performance-based assessment. We do have other tutorials for the other end of course exams and the other computerized assessments for Ohio's Science and Social Studies test.